Greetings, duelists, and welcome to my deck profile. Now, you may be wondering what the hell kind of deck even is this? So allow me to surmise the answer with one phrase. Hero Dragon Hybrid. The objective of this deck is to summon ferociously powerful monsters and use their terrifying might to swiftly reduce our opponent's life points to 0. Leading the charge, we have Dark Armed Dragon. An incredibly powerful card. What makes him even more potent in this deck is the option to banish it for Red Eye's Darkness after he has cleared our opponent's field, and thereby allowing for a much easier time to reduce our opponent's life to 0 with a kill shot. Red Eye's Darkness Middle Dragon, 2 copies, 3 is too clunky for a deck like this. 2 seems to be the sweet spot though. It's a very good card. Obviously, it's why Dragon decks exist in the first place, that and Future Fusion. So I'm not going to say too much more here. Van Dalgren, Dark Dragon Lord, our main revival target for Red Eye's Dark Middle Dragon, big beat stick. His effects are also very good if you are able to activate them, and sometimes you can. The first effect of inflicting damage with spells is always good. 1500 points damage, that's never a bad thing. The other 2 abilities are arguably better, but not always. Taking out the card in our opponent's field is good. Sometimes you will get a changeable trap, like Bottomless for example, and you just trade 1 for 1. Also, in the early stages of the duel, if all you have no monsters in the graveyard, the revival effect is effectively useless. But the spell effect is always good, no matter what. Always relevant, rather. Kokume Drago. This card is pretty solid. It's 1 copy. Shuts lots of decks down. It's not so good against plants, but you know, many of the meta decks are hindered by this card. So it's very nice at 1 copy in here. Triple Wyvern is a staple for a Dragon deck. Future Fusion, revive our Red Eye's Dark Middle Dragons. Worst case scenario, it is an 1800 beat stick. It could be a lot worse, put it that way. 1 copy of Explorer Dragon. Again, very good card. Good for clearing out problematic monsters such as Colossal Spider, for example. Things that we just can't beat down with brute force. Elemental Hero Stratos, staple for the heroes. Card is very good. You can always search out 2 cards, Malicious Edge and Infernal Prodigy in this build, but Stratos just helps add a lot of consistency to a deck that is prone to dead draws. Bad draws has consistency issues. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So yeah, having Stratos on board really does help. 3 Malicious Edge. So just to give you a bit of background, I am a Dragon duelist, always have been, and I'm looking to add the hero package to the Dragon deck, not the other way around. So Malicious Edge is a way to solve one of the Dragon deck's problems that I found, and that is defense position monsters, so stuff like T-Bomb Frog, the floaters, Gangland tokens, all that sort of stuff. We just want to punish our opponents for playing defensively, and Malicious Edge and by extension Dark Gaia are both very good cards that can do that. And help, sustain our aggression. Now to support those 2 Malicious Edges, are 2 Infernal Prodigies. I think 2 is the sweet spot. I kind of do want to run 3, but I tested that 3 and you just sometimes draw duplicates and no Malicious Edge in sight, and just having a bad time then, really. Really good card otherwise though. Getting the draw off Malicious Edge is pretty good. especially since we do have some other monster traps like Trag Ghouls that are coming up next, and heck, even a Vandalion if you pair it with a counter trap. It has been relevant on the rare occasion. Yeah, another good consistency card for the deck. Dragonia, Ghouls, big fiends, gotta use them. Help us not die. Yeah, fuel for dark calling. What more can I say? Dragonia is very potent here. We have lots of high level monsters that we can steal. Level 7s, level 8, level 10 perhaps, and the common level 4 as well. Sometimes level 3. Level 2 comes up as well actually. Yeah, Trag is just a very, very potent card in this deck. Just for his utility. Snipe Hunter is a flex slot, so I added him in temporarily. Well, I'm probably going to not taking him out, but in theory, the idea was that sometimes we draw hands where we have the Dark Calling targets in our hand. We just want to get them to the graveyard. So sometimes Snipe Hunter, we can just get 3 shots on our opponent's board, and then set up a Dark Calling play. Or maybe we just have multiple Darks in hand, Dark on, but we just want to unload in order to sort of speed drop our Dark on Dragon. It's not fun to do those things. You just gotta make sure you don't miss hitting 3 times in a row by playing when does that happen.
NANI?!
I think Sangan is a staple, a must-have in a deck like this. It's another consistency card, which is very, very good. Can search out either Peaceful Dark Calling, can also search out Exploded Dragon to enable Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. So Sangan is doing a lot of work in this deck. Sangan and Stratos really do help boost the consistency of this build. Next we have Bramble, so kind of like Exploded Dragon. Bramble is another card that you can just use to deal with problems. Really good for getting the synchros, absolute zeros, that sort of thing. It's also good to just bounce face down monsters so that our users continue our aggression. So, you know, it's the same thing. There's another card that supports our dragon beat down strategy. Morphin Jar is, if you've noticed, most cards in this deck you don't mind having in the graveyard. They're either dragons for revival, or they're fiend or rock monsters that can set up our Dark Calling. So Morphin Jar is pretty potent. It's a high risk card, of course, high risk, high return, but yeah, it can be really, really good, for sure. It's straight up end games. And you know, on top of all of that, it's also fusion material for Dark Calling. It just makes the card even more better, more synergistic. And finally we have Nekogana. This is kind of another flex slot. We're running reinforcement of the army, so just one down a second warrior. I wasn't really sure what to run, but I settled on this guy for the time being because, you know, it synergizes Morphin Jar, Snipe Hunter, maybe even Trag to an extent. It's another dart for lure, so I think there's enough synergy going on. You can set up turns or tribute and you'll get some value, some extra value that 2/2 goes off. So I think it's not bad. It's not bad. Onto the spells. 3 copies of Dark Calling, one of the main features of this deck. Dark Calling allows us to summon 2 very big and powerful fusions most of the time. Dark Gaia is probably the more prominent option, but Malicious Fiend is no slouch either. Dark Gaia, as mentioned earlier, will help us to retain our aggression and push through, you know, flip effects, you know, turn all the damn lines into attack mode. So you just summon the Dark Gaia, summon another monster, and you can just, yeah, do a lot of carnage with that sort of play. Don't be afraid to summon a weaker Dark Gaia either. So one time I used Grammel and Sangan, maybe 1900 that Dark Gaia, just because this was quite early, like the first couple of turns into the game. And this is because I was pretty sure I was playing like a Ryko set, and I just didn't want to deal with them milling. So yeah, it wasn't really a waste. I was like, you know what, I'll just play Dark Gaia and get a weaker Dark Gaia out. And then when that Dark Gaia dies, then that can serve as fusion material for a Malicious Fiend later on. So yeah, sometimes playing a dark corner early just to get a weaker dark guy out. If that helps you, get your field presence sustained, then that's probably, it might be worth doing. You don't necessarily have to hold on to your dark corners until you can make a big dark guy out. Is the point I'm trying to make. Next up, Future Fusion, favorite spell, probably obvious reasons. The card is just insane. Primarily, we'll use it for 5-headed dragon, dumping 2 Realized Darkness and 3 Wyverns. Sometimes we will use it to dump Stratos and Earth monsters such as Malicious Edge or maybe Grand Mole to facilitate a dark corner. So that is something that has happened before. It's not going to happen often, but it does happen. Does come off. Definitely does come off. But primarily it's 5-headed dragon. Rule of Darkness. Another consistency card, which we welcome with open arms. Reinforcement of an army, consistency for Stratos. Lane control, it's a good kill shot card. Helps us bring out our Malicious Edge. Maybe steal the dragon, banish for red eyes. It's just good stuff. Right, good stuff. Giant True Nade and Heavy Storm. I opted for True Nade over MST because this deck it's not an OTK deck, but it can kill. You can get these hands that can just be killer hands, and sometimes you just want to make sure that you can get that kill shot in. So True Nade, I think, is just a better card for enabling that. True Nade also has good synergy with Call the Haunted and Future Fusion, allowing us to potentially reuse those cards. Finally, True Nade can clear our own back road to make Gauze live. That's happened once, maybe twice. Onto the traps. Overwhelm is currently my favorite trap card, and counter trap specifically. So this is it's an interesting card. I have scoured the Edison format of counter traps to find alternatives to stuff like Dark Glide, Divine Laugh. Those are sort of common counter traps I used to run. So I'm trying to just innovate a little, and this is what I came up with. I came up with Overwhelm and Magic Drain. We'll talk about Overwhelm first. So the idea is that we choose the requirement with Malicious Edge. Malicious Edge, if Tribute Summon does fulfill the requirements for Overwhelm, that's what we're aiming for here. And with that, we are able to negate any monster effect or trap card. So it's pretty powerful in that regard. And I'm going to make a bit of a loose comparison here. I'm going to loosely compare it to stuff like Icarus Attack and Gemini Spark. So all of these cards, they're kind of deck specific. You can't just splash into any deck, they're deck specific cards. But all of them aim to trade evenly. They're trading 1 for 1, 2 for 2, that sort of thing. The difference is, Overwhelm retains our momentum or our field presence. We do not sacrifice field presence for activating Overwhelm, whereas with Icarus Attack and Gemini Spark, you are losing momentum to use these cards. So that is one of the big draws for Overwhelm, is that your presence is retained. The other advantage, and I'm going to do another loose comparison to cards like Gladiator Beast, War Chariot, and Sable Hole. So these two also have a conditional requirement, but they can only stop monsters. And sometimes you don't need to stop monsters, sometimes you need to stop a trap card. Overwhelm can do both. Overwhelm can be used offensively when making a push to stop a trap card. It can be used defensively to stop our enemy's monster effects. And that also means it's harder for people to subvert the condition to basically shut down or shut off the Overwhelm. So people can't, for example, Phoenix and Ring Blast and Compulse our Malicious Edge and thereby turn off Overwhelm. It is true that they can still Smashing Ground, Book of Moon, that sort of thing. And that is just a weakness of the card, unfortunately. I really, really wish it also negated spells, but Konami was not that kind, unfortunately. But speaking of spell negation, that's kind of why we've partnered Overwhelm with Magic Drain, because it stops the cards Overwhelm cannot, or at least it attempts to. I've been testing Magic Drain, and I quite like it over Dark Bribe. It is costless negation, so as long as we can activate it, we're going to trade at least 1 for 1, possibly getting a plus, as long as we can activate it. That's the key thing, because Magic Drain can only stop spells. And that's a drawback of this card. Sometimes we need to stop a trap card, and yeah, Magic Drain just can't do it. It only stops spells, or potentially stops spells at that. But most of the time I have found Magic Drain will stop a spell, and it's costless negation, so you can just throw it at any old thing. If you just chuck it at a Book of Moon maybe, and to get the negation off, maybe you can summon Vandalion, burn into 1500, and if it's your battle phase, get an extra attack in. These type of reversals can happen with Magic Drain. And most of the time I have found Magic Drain will negate the card that I played against. That's just what I found through my own testing. So I think the card's pretty solid. I think it's being slept on a little. I think it's a good alternative to cards, to other, filler's the wrong word, to other, but I'll use the term, filler trap cards like Dust Tornadoes, maybe even Dimensional Prison, that sort of thing. For duelists who are more concerned about stuff like Brain Control or Heavy Storm, etc., etc., I think Magic Drain could warrant could warrant testing maybe 1 or 2 slots instead of that, that Dust Tornado or that Dimensional Prison. I think the card is worth investigating, in my opinion. Solemn Judge, the last 4 cards are all staples, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on all of these. Just to outline some synergies that Torrential pair as well as Sangan, possibly Nekogami as well. Call the Haunted works well with Sangan and Shadows and Dark. There's some decent synergies here. On to our sideboard, so we have one of the things I really like about this deck is that it definitely becomes stronger post-side. This is the deck that gets stronger going to games 2 and 3. And there's not too many decks that can make that claim. Most of our side deck is synergistic with our main. And a lot of our side deck cards can just shut down our opponents outrightly win games. So Fossil Dino and Dragos are, they can just end games against the right matchups. Like Dino, a well-timed Dino against like frogs or plants, he's just game over. Like no exaggeration. Same with Drago against the light and dark decks. You can just end games straight up. And this deck can support both of them. And it's synergistic. Drago works with the dragon stuff, and Fossil Dino is a dark calling target. So this is a lot of really good potent synergy going on here. You have another exploded dragon on the side. It's for stuff like Vanity's Food or whatever other nonsense. Just want a bit more monster hate than it's just there for that. Now I've got 3 copies of Super Polymerization. I think that's a bit overkill, but I wanted to just make sure I could see it. But we'll probably drop it down to 2, but it's again another very good card. It synergizes well with our heroes set up, so against the flog matchups, the hero matchups, we can, in the worst case scenario, we can trade off our Malicious Edge or Infernal Prodigy with one of their cards to go into Absolute Zero or Element of Zero Gaia. It also has some synergy with, we can make the Super Ally Raptor, which is interesting against the Hero Beat matchup or the Gemini matchup. I think Super Poly is good, but I think 2 copies can be better than 3. I just wanted to really make sure I see it, but you don't want to see too many of them. And this is just a stable. 3 pulling the rug, synergizing Vandalion. And Curse of Royale and Heroes Rule number 2 are just other counter traps I'm just testing out. Curse of Royale is interesting in that it can negate a fair few cards. And you may not realize it can negate. So it will negate stuff like MST, Dust Tornado, but it will also stop Solemn Judgment if that Solemn Judgment is being used to negate a spell or trap. You can use Curse of Royale to negate Solemn Judgment. You can also use Curse of Royale to negate My Body as a Shield, if My Body as a Shield is being used to negate a spell or trap like a Lightning Vortex or a Force. The Curse of Royale is an interesting one. It's just something I'm testing out. It's a flex slot. And Hero's rule number 2 is just my version of the code, more or less. It's synergistic with the hero, the thematic, the hero thematic as well, which is, it's kind of style points, I guess. And finally, our extra deck, we've got 2 5-headed dragons, just we've got giant shoe-made. 2 of each of the evil heroes. I think it's all you need. You don't really need 3 of each. Most of the time you're going to be doing 2 dark guys and one malicious thing. That's even if you resolve all 3. I don't think I've ever resolved all 3. Normally I resolve 2. It's usually either 2 dark guys or 1 of each. It's typically what ends up happening. Malicious Fiend has some interesting synergies with stuff like Fossil Diner. You can protect the diner with this guy, which is kind of interesting. Or even protect the Cocky-Made Drago, protect the Red Eye's Darkness. Just for combat purposes, you can kind of keep these cards alive and they can retain their value, or in the case of Red Eyes, generate even more value. So yeah, it doesn't really come up that often, but it can come up. 2 absolute zeros and the Gaia, Super Poly, and the Gaia also supports our Future Fusion. That Alloy Beast is an interesting one because it is a dragon, so you can actually Super Poly into this and then banish it from Red Eyes, which is pretty cool, and it's something that is distinct to this deck. The Chimera Tech Fortress, just kind of a staple to have in there, especially since you've got plenty of space in this texture there. And I'm just doing 3 synchros just in case we brain control something, achieve it. And that's it. If you stuck with me this far so far, thank you very much. I do have a match I want to run through to showcase some of this deck's capabilities. I win the rock, paper, scissors and elect to go first. So here my game plan is I'm going to rotor, grab Stratos, grab Malicious Edge and set Overwhelm. So I'm hoping that I can get a turn 2 Overwhelm play with a Vandal follow-up. That's my game plan here. Unfortunately, we get Caius, and he banishes the Stratos, which I think is the right play. I would probably have done the same thing. In case I am on Miracle Fusion, this taking out the Miracle Fusion target just slows that whole engine down. And there's a good chance that this could have been like a bottomless trap hole or some other kind of chainable trap anyhow. So here my plan is I want to try and set up this Red Eye's Darkness. And so I just want to trade this Exploded Dragon off with the Caius. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. And the reason I set a TT as well is because there's a chance my opponent summons a level 2 tuner and tries to make a Stardust Dragon, which would bypass out Exploder. So if they do that, I can at least trade 2 for 2, and next turn I can still make that Red Eyes play. Goes for the straight into the attack. Gold Sarks for Future Fusion. It's back to me. So I tried to make this Red Eyes play, but it gets bottomless and I pass. He brings out Stratos, gets an attack off of me, and now I am ready to set up this Overwhelm. Drop the Mally Edge, get the attack in. Conditions for Overwhelm have been met. Draw a card during the end phase, which is a nice little bonus. In terms of Caius, I flip the Overwhelm. I go for the extension, but unfortunately, we get punished by TT, which is a bit sad because if this play had gone through, next turn I could have, summoned Red Eye's Darkness, and yeah, probably could have gone for a kill shot with the True Nade, backed up by that giant True Nade. Alas, it was not to be, and this duel continues. And my hand is not looking so great now. This Overwhelm is a dead card, possibly that we could tribute some of this guy to make it live, but it's not looking good right now. Our opponent also makes an extensive play, and this is not a bad decision. This is because he's still got a Future Fusion in play. Absolute Zero is going to come out next turn, so rationale here is I better have the Torrential Trinity to stop this, otherwise I am in big trouble. Fortunately, I do, and able to stymie his aggression. I have to play the giant True Nade here, because if this absolute zero comes down, I am in really bad shape. Unfortunately, by doing so, I add a dead spell to their hand, which makes this Magic Drain pretty useless, but I set it as a bluff regardless. I'm just waiting to draw a connective card, and I do. And my opponent here is choosing to hold onto their cards, sort of telegraphing the Gauls, which is why when I make this Red Eyes play, I don't decide to attack. I decide to wait a turn and try and see whether we can get this Overwhelm up and running. So my game plan is next turn, tribute summon this guy, and then go for game. I just need one more turn to hold out. My opponent sets 3 back row, and it's back to me now, and the plan is looking like we go. And this series, this chain of events, leads to a hero's downfall. I kind of fast forward there, but basically what happened was I attacked, he flipped Mirror Force, I chained Overwhelm, he chained Soul, I chained Soul. And that's the end of that. So going into game 2, we're going second. This is a nice hand. I'm feeling pretty good with a hand like this. Unfortunately, this Catastor proves to be quite a menace. Quite a menace indeed. But I said Stratos anyway. I summoned Stratos to try and get the things rolling. I said Heavy Storm was a bluff. I don't really have any way to deal with this Catastor, so I'm just sitting here taking hits. I'm just trying to thin my deck a little bit here, so that's why I make this play, get the extra draw in. I know my opponent has Gold Sarked into Heavy Storm, yes, and that's why during the draw phase, standby phase, I flip the call just to thin the deck a little bit more, get some extra value. Lose my Stratos here, and then it's back to me, and again, I thought I had sided out all copies of this card. Had I known I kept one in, I would have set the Wyvern last turn. Then the following turn I would have set the Overwhelm and made this tribute summon play to then use the Overwhelm to out the Catastrophe. That would have been the plan. That's what we would have tried to have done. But even if we did, as soon as we set this Overwhelm, we've got the Heavy Storm to out it anyway. So I don't think even that would have worked. So we trade here, trade Heavy Storm for Heavy Storm, but yeah, I don't really have much going for you. And this Royal Decree comes as I was not expecting this. But our opponent is able to very safely make a blowout play here, demonstrating the true power of Overheroes. Let me go to game 3. I'd have to go first, and I really should have decided out these pulling the rugs. I don't know enough about the side decking strategies and stuff. But in hindsight, my friend basically told me that Diva Hero will often side out their Divas or their Kaises. They'll reduce the number of pulling the rug targets, basically, making this card a bit more dead. Anyhow, we're here now, so Gold Star for Future Fusion. And I basically decided, I deliberate before I summon this Wyvern, and I decided to risk the attack and hope that there's a number of Gauls. Because the weakness behind Gold Sarcophagus is that it is a slow card. And so early aggression punishes Gold Sark. And I surmised that if he does drop Gauls, I do have Exploded Dragon that can deal with it. So that is why I make this committed play here. And it pays off. Get some good damage in, and it's back to me. Again, I decided to continue playing aggressively. I could have been punished by a torrential tribute, but fortunately it's just a bottomless truffle, and we can continue hammering some damage. So Decree comes down to cures the future pretty well. Could have had it in this today, yes, but Thought Ruler comes down and gets some very much needed life gain. I think this was a very good synchro choice. And had I been paying attention to his graveyard, well, you'll see what happens. On my turn, I do draw into the Red Eyes Darkness, I believe, so I'm able to make this play, which is very lucky because without this red eyes draw, I would have just summoned Exploder and crashed. I wouldn't have had this board presence. But had I been paying a little more attention, I would have realised that this put the third Dark into my opponent's graveyard, which allows for Dark on. So this super polarization, I should not have said it. This is a blunder. But fortunately, my opponent makes a pretty aggressive play here, and it makes sense. He's low on life, and he needs to try and turn this around. So this aggression definitely makes sense to me. Steals my Wyvern, direct attack for 28, and I just pray that he doesn't target one of my back rows. He had a Malicious left, so he could have tried to snipe one of my back rows. But it makes sense to keep it in the graveyard to support Miracle Fusion. I mean, you got Stratos as well, but just in case. And my hand is not looking good. Fortunately, I've got the Super Poly, and I know Ab-Zero is coming out next turn, which guarantees my Super Poly going off. So I can afford to play a little aggressively and get some chip damage on this Wyvern. And here we go. Attempts to seal the duel, but this super polarization is a bit of a stunning reversal. And if you look at my graveyard, I now have the requirements for Dark Calling, so should I draw into one of those, it could just be a game over there and there. Sets a monster, it passes, it's over to me. Unfortunately, I draw another pull in the rug. But we do have Future Fusion now, so we can play our strongest card and make a final stand. So the reason I summoned both these Wyverns here, both these red eyes, is that I'm on 3300, I'm feeling it a little risky. I know my opponent could just Miracle Fusion and blast my board, or they could even have brain control, so this was a very risky play. But I was not comfortable keeping just one red eyes out. Because if he could distribute a Caius and he just got Royal Decree, I can't even pull the nugget. He could distribute it to Caius and then that's game. Yeah, I take 1,000 from the burn and then I direct attack for 24, that's 3,400. So that is why I opted to summon both of these. I was basically declaring a final stand. If you broke this board, then I lose. But I am able to capitalize on both these monsters staying in play, and double my field presence, and then make a series of attacks that ends the match. There you go, it gives you a bit of an idea of what the deck can do. Unfortunately, I never got to play Dark Calling, just never saw the card in this match at all. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.